Hello, everyone. The aim of my paper is to explore the relationship between archaeology and the revival of the modern Cypriot mining industry through documents recovered from the state archives, as well as the archives of the mining companies and people who once worked for them. This work was done within the framework of a research project entitled Skouryotissa, Interdisciplinary Study of the Archaeology and Environment of Cyprus's Last Operating Copper Mine, funded by the University of Cyprus through a grant from the A.G. Leventis Foundation, which I have been coordinating over the last few years. Cyprus's mineral wealth and copper mines were loaded in the ancient texts, which were clearly well known to those with a classical education. Thus, passages from Strabo, Pseudo-Aristotle, and Pliny are echoed in the published accounts of travelers who visited Cyprus as early as the 16th century. But by the time of their visits, the mines lay abandoned and in ruin. They all seem to agree that the Ottoman rulers of the island had no knowledge of mining and that the locals had no interest to show or work the ore deposits for their oppressors, as they would have nothing to gain from this hard labor. The study of ancient slag heaps all over the island within the framework of several interdisciplinary projects over the last 25 years has shown that mining had indeed stopped by the end of the 7th century AD for reasons which we are still trying to understand. By the dawn of the modern era, even the memory of this important Cypriot industry had been lost among the local villagers. According to Albert Gaudry, who wrote a book on the geology of the island, published in 1862, the enormous slag heaps, which could be found in several places around the island he had visited, were believed to have been formed by volcanoes due to the resemblance of tap slag with lava. By the 19th century, when Ottoman rule came to an end, the island was greatly impoverished, suffering from continuous droughts, plagues of locusts, and deforestation. Clearly, the copper deposits of Cyprus, untouched since late antiquity, offered alternatives and were thus of great interest to the British Empire, which took possession of the island in 1878. In a paper entitled Cyprus, Its Value and Importance in England, published on that same year, it is stated, and I quote, "The mines are rich in copper, and the proof of gold existing in that large pieces of the precious metal are daily washed down by the mountain streams. Capitalists will find the mines, once worked by the Greeks and others, but now abandoned, a source of unlimited wealth." This is probably why on the first triangulated map of the island prepared by Horatio Kitchener for the British colonial government between 1878 and 1883, the locations of some of the largest ancient slag heaps were recorded. This could be used by prospectors to locate the ore deposits. Slag is the waste product of the smelting process, which could not be reused in any way. Thus, large masses of this material accumulate in the areas where smelting used to take place. If one finds a slag heap, one can be sure that an ore deposit that perhaps has not already been exhausted lies nearby. According to a handbook produced by the Foreign Office in 1920, the government, and I quote, "The government has made many attempts to develop the mining industry in order to lessen the dependence of Cyprus on agriculture. It compiled a list of the numerous localities in which mines were anciently worked." Furthermore, in 1921, the Colonial Office commissioned a report on the cupriferous deposits of the island. It was submitted in 1922 to Winston Churchill, who at the time was the Secretary of State for the colonies, and an edited version was published in 1927. This provides valuable information regarding the location of ancient slag heaps and mines in the foothills around the Troodos Mountains. These monuments of Cyprus's ancient copper industry served as markers of valuable copper ore deposits which could be worked and bring great wealth both to the companies that exploited them and to the British colonial government. In order to illustrate just how much the mining industry contributed to the modern economy of the island, let me just say that between around 1920 and 1960, namely from the time copper mining had resumed to the end of the British colonial rule, 50% of the island's exports were products of the mining industry, and in the same period, 15 to 25% of all the taxes collected and 50 to 70% of income tax derived from the mining industry. The island's modern mining industry was launched in 1912 when Charles Godfrey Gunther, an American prospector who came across the same ancient references to Cyprus's mineral wealth, came to the island in order to investigate the possibility of opening a new mine. Shortly after his arrival, Gunther visited the area of Skouryotissa, following the recommendation of the principal forestry officer, A.K. Boville. The area was named after a small church dedicated to Panagia Skouryotissa, or Virgin Mary of the Slag, which lies in the foot of the largest slag heap on the island and one of the largest ancient slag heaps known in general. By 1916, the Cyprus Mines Corporation was established in order to exploit the deposit of Skouryotissa and others in the mining region of Solea, and eventually also all around the island. As the company had to buy or lease the land in Skouryotissa before beginning the mining operations, a map was prepared in 1916, which indicates the owners of the different parcels of interest. This map, discovered in the state archives, clearly shows the two spatially separated concentrations of slag, just as they are seen in photographs of the area published in 1937. A large and diverse mining community was established around the monastery of Skouryotissa, which was turned into the headquarters of the company. It consisted of mining engineers from Europe or America and hundreds of untrained laborers from local villages, both men and women. In 1921, CMC employed almost 1,000 people, but by 1938, this number rose to 9,200, the highest ever for the Cypriot mining industry. It is not surprising that while working the ore deposits, but also while setting up the mine's infrastructure, antiquities came to light. Thanks to the interest of James Latimer Bruce, the resident director of CMC from 1925 to 1935, the location of some of the ancient galleries was noted in the plans of the mine, and the objects found within them were collected. Bruce, in collaboration with D.M. Kreveling, presented the information he gathered in an appendix included in the third volume of the Swedish Cyprus expedition, published in 1937. The paper, entitled Antiquities in the Mines of Cyprus, shares information regarding ancient mining technology, plans and sections of the ancient adits, photographs of the mining tools and the slag heaps. It is therefore extremely important, as these remains have since been largely destroyed, because after the 1950s, the ore has been extracted by the open cast method. Lately, within the framework of my project, we have been able to georeference the maps and show on current aerial photographs the location of these remains. The miners made some important archaeological discoveries, such as the Mathiatis hoard, which was found during the opening of the North Mathiatis mine in 1936. This is one of the most extraordinary late Cypriot hoards because it includes the largest number of oxide ingot fragments ever found, as well as other unique metal artifacts, which I have no time to discuss here. As the Mathiatis hoard was found by CMC staff, the objects came to the hands of the director of the company, James Bruce. Bruce, acting on behalf of the company's owner, Harvey Mudd, had hoped to export them together with other artifacts which he had purchased for Mudd and for himself. But the new antiquities law came in force in that exact year, and therefore the objects had to be declared and a request had to be submitted for them to be exported. The permit was granted, but only after Peter McGaw, the director of the Department of Antiquities, had chosen some artifacts that he deemed to be too important to be removed from the island. They were kept by the Cyprus Museum. My search through the photographic archives of the Department of Antiquities revealed how the hoard was divided. The information was hidden on the back of the photographs submitted by the mining company. Of great interest is the fact that apart from Harvey Mudd and James Bruce, namely the owner and the director of the mining company, a piece of oxide ingot from the hoard was also kept by a Mr. Bevan. According to Petros Papapoliviou, this most probably was William Bevan, who held various positions in the British colonial government, including Director of Agriculture. Why a state official could claim one of the artifacts for his personal collection, I do not know. Another perhaps even greater discovery was made only 2 years later, 1938, when CMC started operations at the mine of Vasiliki, which according to provenance studies is the most probable source for the copper used to make oxide ingots found all over the Mediterranean. There they discovered the first and only mining settlement known to date. It has been securely dated to the late Cypriot Sea, namely the period during which Bronze Age copper production and trade had peaked. By the time Karamallos was discovered, there was clearly a change in the relationship between the mining company and the Department of Antiquities. Not only was the discovery duly reported and the Department of Antiquities given time to undertake rescue excavations, but the rescue excavations carried out by Joan Duplat Taylor were actually financially supported by the mining company. In the state archives, I have found reports written by the young archaeological officer and sent off to Harvey Mudd, who was following the progress of the excavations with interest, but from afar. Of course, many more antiquities were found in the mining area, and they did not all have the same fate. The local villagers soon realized that the mining engineers and their spouses had a keen interest in Cypriot antiquities. Thus, they would bring objects which they found in their land, ceramic, glass, and metal artifacts and jewelry, to sell to members of CMC. In correspondence sent by Ruby Jackson, the wife of the resident director of CMC between 1923 and 1924, the members of her family recently published by her grandson, William Everett, there are numerous references to Cypriot antiquities that they had bought. Mr. Everett's mother, so Ruby's daughter, recalled how she used to play with figurines and ancient glass vessels as a child. The most important objects were sold or kept for the owner of CMC, Harvey Mudd, who acquired an important collection of Cypriot antiquities. This included one of only 3 complete oxide ingots ever found on the island, which he had bought from Basil Palma at the extremely high price for the time of £200. When he passed away, his family founded an engineering college in his memory, which they named after him. His collection was gifted to the college after the passing of his wife. Other members of the company, such as Bruce, also obtained their own collections of Cypriot antiquities, and when they left Cyprus, they exported them with permission from the Department of Antiquities. An important collection of mining tools was kept in the offices of CMC in Skouryotissa, and when the company closed operations on the island in 1976, the collection was given to the Department of Antiquities, and some of the artifacts were used for the archaeometallurgy display in the Cyprus Museum, which unfortunately has now been taken down. One of the aims of the Skouryotissa project was to collate all the information on these collections, and I therefore came in touch with members of the family of Bruce, but also the president of Harvey Mudd College. She informed Mr. Mudd's granddaughter, Victoria, that someone from Cyprus was interested in the collection. After a few months of correspondence, Mrs. Mudd got in touch to say that the Mudd family, together with the Board of Trustees of Harvey Mudd College, had decided that they would like to return the collection of Cypriot antiquities to its place of origin. They believed that the University of Cyprus, an academic institution like Harvey Mudd College, would be the ideal home for the collection. The deed of gift was signed in December 2018 by the rector of the University of Cyprus and the president of Harvey Mudd College, and the objects were meant to be repatriated last year, but unfortunately, like many other things, the repatriation has been delayed due to the pandemic. There is still a lot of research to be done, not only in the state archives, but also in the National Archives in London, which I had hoped to visit, but have not yet been able to do so. But mining in the archives has already been proven to be a profitable exercise. It has revealed the contribution of archaeology to the establishment of the modern mining industry, and it has brought to light new and exciting information about ancient mining on the island. Thank you very much.